Oh, that's a good point. You can use your phone for the audio. If you open up the chat, at the top of the chat window is phone numbers you can dial in, but he can't hear me. He can't hear me, so why am I saying that? Thanks for your tech support, Caitlin. I'm going to keep going. All right, so that data is also available. No, not that. What am I looking for? Yes. All right, and then there's also this large script, we call it, that has a bunch of SQL commands in it to generate all the data for this Indeed stuff that we just saw in Excel. And some of this stuff maybe is a little bit familiar. All right, here's this create table. Maybe it's not familiar, but you can kind of figure it out. This makes a table to hold the stuff. And then there's this command insert into, which puts these new records into that table. And then just a bunch of lines for the different openings. All right, so is everybody able to see those files? What we're going to do is kind of like you did with that accounts payable thing last time. We're going to try to get this script going into your MySQL workbench here. So let me bring that up on my screen. And I'm going to hit this new button in the upper left. It says a little SQL paper and a little plus sign. That gives me a new editor window. And let me delete that. We need to create a new database or a new schema that MySQL calls it. Remember, a database management system like MySQL can have multiple databases in it. So we want to create a new database separate from the AP that we used before, separate from the pets that we used before. And so the command for that is, if I spell it correctly, I'll call it Indeed.
Make that a little weird.
Yeah, how did I do that before? Did I do that before? There's maybe some.
I can do it by squeezing in and out on the mouse pad.
Yeah. Or control click. Yeah, how about that? Yes. Okay. I can control the size of text. All right. And then I have that script file open in, I have it open in my Notepad utility. You might have it open in your web browser or something, but I'm going to do a copy paste. So I'm going to paste all that stuff into the same window here so that because the script file doesn't include the create schema. So we need to put this create schema in to be able to make sure these inserts go into a new database. I wonder, do I need to use after that as well? Let's go ahead and do that just to be sure. Use Indeed.
I'm gonna Messed up. All right, so it's after that create students and use Indeed.
Just make sure it goes into the database, and if all goes well. So yeah, create database, create schema. Remember there's different dialects of the SQL language. There's MySQL, but then there's also Microsoft Access, there's Oracle, there's Postgres. They all have different names or slightly different variations. So yeah, schema and database are pretty much synonymous. Thanks for monitoring the chat for me. So if all goes well, I could hit this lightning bolt button and refresh my schema here with this little refresh button in the navigator, and I should have a new Indeed database with a table called Indeed database, which maybe isn't the most descriptive name, but now we have more data that we can work with. Was that successful for everybody? Sweet.
It says that it doesn't know what the Indeed database is.
Did you run the whole thing? Or
I thought it. Try again. Ah, okay. I think. There we go.
Just kind of install. Every time I go to restart the server, there's an option for that, and just crash the program.
maybe something else.
All right, well, all right.
Sorry, I don't have a better answer. All right. There's only one table in this script, in this database, and so I'm going to hit this new button in the upper left to get yet another query window. You'll be doing this a lot with this MySQL workbench, having a lot of different tabs, different documents open, and flipping back and forth between them. So let's say use Indeed, and then select star from, and let me make this text bigger. And run all of that, and we should get some query results in this grid at the bottom of the screen, showing that we successfully, hopefully, imported. Okay, success, success, great. How about everybody out in internet land? Success.
My information is different. Mine has directors' names and duration. I mean, I copied and pasted the file. I must have copied the wrong file. I thought there was only one file to copy.
That sounds like the IMDb database.
Oh, director. Oh, okay. You may have downloaded the wrong,
Okay.
because one of them is from IMDb, the Internet Movie Database. If you got that script instead. Oops.
I did get an error though. I don't have the table because it says that IMDb.indeed.database doesn't exist.
IMDb?
Yeah, that's okay. I'm really not sure. It doesn't seem like that's right.
Where did IMDb come from?
I'm not sure. This is highlighted. I don't know if that's. I was working on my homework. But...
Oh. You might be in the wrong schema or something. All right. Well, so either it's working or it's working-ish or it's not. The purpose of this is to demonstrate getting external data in to a MySQL database. And ultimately, the topic for this week, chapter 3 in the book, is the select statement. And we can improvise selects on that AP database that you had from last week, or and some of the selects don't even require a database table at all. But this is the way a lot of this is going to go. You'll download some resource from the e-learn system or from the internet, and then load it into your database for some kind of analysis or queries or sorting or things like that. All right. Well, I'm going to switch over to a little bit of PowerPoint, and if you're still working on this, you can listen to me and get caught up. I don't want to make the PowerPoint too terribly terrible, but there is some important stuff in here. So let's do that here for a few minutes. So we're in chapter 3 of the book for this week, how to retrieve data from a single table. And this is one of the most important things that we do with databases is we put data in to a database, but then at the same time we want to get data out of the database. And so this chapter is about getting that data out. And the way that we do this is with what we call a query. We're going to query the database. We're going to say, hey, database, give me this stuff. And the way that we're going to do that is with this SQL command called select. You'll be typing the word select a gazillion times throughout the course of this class. It has a lot of options and it has a lot of capability, and we'll just get started with some of the easier parts, and then we'll expand on this as we continue through the semester. Make this a little bigger. All right, you're going to see these kind of syntax diagrams throughout the textbook where it explains what the commands are and how they work. And the thing to notice is that some of these are enclosed in these kind of square brackets, which means they are optional. Notice that the select line, this first line here, is not in square brackets, which means it's required. So to use this select thing, at a minimum, you need select. And then beyond that, you can include from, or where, or order by, or limit, or any combination of those to get whatever it is you're trying to do. All right, so let's look at some very basic selects that we can do. So let me switch to my SQL Workbench. I'm going to hit the New button here to open yet another query window where I can type some more commands. And let's do something really simple. What do you think is going to happen here? I'll hit the Run button. And you can see my query results in the grid at the bottom. All right, so there's a select. The database can do math. How exciting. All right, let's modify that. Select 2 plus 3 times 4. What's that going to generate as an answer? 14. You guys are good. The database follows the same rules as mathematics and other programming languages, and the same deal as programming languages. We can put parentheses if we want to change the order of those operations. And so now 2 plus 3 happens first, 5, and then times 4, giving me a result of 20. And run it again. And now I get just a few of the columns, the ones that I asked for, and nothing else. All right. That's kind of it for the from. If you go back to the beginning and look at the title of this chapter, How to Retrieve Data from a Single Table. Later on, we'll add some complexity and get information from multiple tables, which means our from will be a little more complicated to specify which tables, plural, to use. But for us, for today, we're just going to stick, or for this week, we're going to stick with just a single table. So that's kind of it for the from, is what I meant to say. That's kind of it. All right. So stop me if we need to be stopped. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. Let's take a look at another clause then. Let's do where. And where is followed by a search condition. All right. If you took the earlier database class, you used Microsoft Access, and there it was called the criteria. The criteria. What is it that you're searching for? The word criteria comes from the Latin, and the way Latin works is that criteria is actually plural, and if there's just one thing that you're trying to match, technically it's a criterion, a criterion. Nobody ever says that, except computer nerds like me. I don't know, criterion sounds like it should be some kind of hybrid electric car or something, the new Chevy Criterion. But the idea here is limiting the results we get. We don't want all the information in the table. We only want certain pieces of information. So let me go back to my workbench. And I'm going to change my select to be this asterisk again to grab everything from the table. And let's add another clause here. This works kind of like an if statement in computer programming. Computer's going to match each record in the table and compare, is the invoice total greater than 1,000? True or false? If the result is true, then that record is included in the query results. And if that if evaluates to false, then it's not included in the query results. So let me go ahead and hit the lightning bolt, and scroll on down. And if I look at this invoice total column, I can see that indeed, yes, they are all over $1,000. So these are the invoices that are over $1,000. I see a couple of invoices that have 5 digits. So let's modify this query and look for invoices over $10,000. We'll run the query again, and my results list is smaller because the criteria is more restrictive. Let's change the query criteria to $100,000. I'll run that. I got nothing. All right, so it's possible that your queries don't return any results, and that's okay, right? We don't have any invoices over $100,000, so it's possible to get 0 query results. All right. Let's keep going here. Let me turn this query back into a more reasonable number so that I can see some query results. In my selects, well, no, let's stick with the, yeah, okay, so that's it for where. You can do ands and ors in your where, just like you can do ands and ors in your if statements. You can read about that in the book. I do want to keep going here just because we are a little short on time. And let's talk about more about this select list. All right, and to talk about that, I'm going to comment out the where. I want to apply this to all of the records in this table. And if we look here in this results, I have a field called invoice total and payment total. In this particular one that I'm looking at, the payment is the same as the invoice. But if I look a little bit farther down here, this invoice is for $12,000, but they've paid $37,000. That seems a little weird. Why would they do that? But a little bit farther down, these are the same. I want to find where the payment is different from the invoice itself and by how much. So I'm going to make a calculated field. So let's do the invoice number, the invoice total, the payment total, and then here's the math, a calculated field. And let me put this stuff on separate lines. It's getting a little unwieldy. All right, so this last little bit here that I'm highlighting is a calculated field. It doesn't exist in the database, but the database will calculate it based on the values that are in the database. So let's go ahead and run this. Oh, I don't want to, okay, let's try that again. All right, and as I scroll down this new column here, I see mostly a bunch of zeros. Oh, but here's that one where it's negative 25,000. They've overpaid by 25,000. And here's one where they still owe us $200. So this fourth column is not in the database, but it's calculated from the database. Notice this header up at the top. The name of the column is usually shown in this results grid. But this column doesn't exist, so it doesn't have a name. So by default, the MySQL system uses the calculation as the name. And that's not very, mathematically it makes sense, but let's give it a name. And so there's this SQL instruction as, where we can assign what's called an alias. What do we want to call this calculated column? Let's just call it difference, the difference. Right? When you subtract, you get what's called a difference. What's the difference between the invoice total and the payment total? So let's run that. And now I can see this column header says difference. Okay. And this is not very interesting because most of the values are zero. Most of the invoices are paid, which is great for business, but I don't really care. Let's say for this example, I don't care what's been paid. I want to know what's not been paid. And so I can put a where on here. So let me uncomment the where, and let's say where the difference is not equal to 0. And notice the way that SQL uses the not equal operator. This is different from Java and C++, but the principle is the same. This is how we say not equal to. So show me where it's not 0. In exactly the wrong spot there. An unknown column. Oh, that's right, I can't do that. I have to spell out the calculation again. So copy, I can't use that alias name in the where. How annoying. And now, there we go. Now we get the ones where it's not 0. All right. Is that working for everybody, or any questions? It's all been kind of quiet here the past few minutes. No news is good news, right? Is that how that saying goes? Don't have that negative one. because my AP database is left over from the last time I taught this class. I did not get a fresh copy, so I've been editing the data as part of going through that class last time. So my data might be a little bit different. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I should maybe clean up my stuff, but I didn't. All right. All right, I'm going to hit the new query button window, and let's do another. And let's go back to the PowerPoint here, and let's take a look at order by. This is another clause for sorting. Sorting, remember we can do ascending or descending sorts. Make that a little bigger. Let's go back to the vendors table and see what interesting things we can do here. Come on, line up. All right, let's get a list of our vendors in alphabetical order. So I say order by, and then the field that I want to use as my sort value. So I can look at the results here, Abby, American, ASC, ASCOM. Sorry, I'm being a little
I didn't know
juvenile.
to do it in alphabetical.
What's that?
I didn't know to do it in alphabetical order. It just always,
It always does that. So when there's so by default, it's an ascending sort. And so ascending for numbers means they get bigger. And ascending for words means they start at A and go to Z. We can specify reverse alphabetical order with this DESC option, short for descending. And so when I run this query, now I get the Z's at the beginning. By default, the sorts are always ascending. But if you want, you can be explicit and use ASC to force it to be in ascending order. All right, and then we can combine these different clauses. Let's just look for vendors in California. So we can add a where clause, where vendor state equals CA. So this will be just our California vendors in alphabetical order by name.
not using that weird,
The what?
no.
Okay, glad I could help. Oh, also speaking of programming languages, When you use this where and the equal sign to check for equality, in programming languages like C++ and Java, you got to deal with there's a single equal sign for assignment and the double equal sign for equality. And it's different in this SQL language where it's a single equal sign to test for equality. There is no double equal sign. Also, in programming, we say not equal like that, and we saw this earlier. We use greater than, less than, or I guess that's a less than, greater than, to indicate not equal. So it's all in the textbook, and it's the kind of mistake you'll make until it clicks, or you continue making those kind of mistakes like I did. It's like, oh yeah, I'm working in Java now. Oh yeah, I'm working in SQL now. All right. Let me hit the new button here in the upper left. Let's do yet another. I want to see where, I'm going to work with the vendors table again. I want to see where our vendors are. So I could say, something like this. I don't care about all the name and address and stuff like that, just the states. I want to know where we have vendors. If I run this, I look at these results, I mean, yeah, I see all the states, but there's a lot of Californias, and it just keeps on going and going. There's a lot of results, and it doesn't really tell you where they're from. So there's yet another option here with the select, and that keyword is distinct. And this gives you only unique values. Should have done this half an hour ago. I don't know if that's easier for, I'm in exactly the wrong spot.
A little bit, yep.
All right, so let's run the distinct. And now I see everything listed once. Still kind of a mess, so let's put an order by. Get these in alphabetical order. Come on, what? Order, oh, I got the semicolon there. Let's get rid of that semicolon. Try that again. All right, Arizona, California, Connecticut, DC, Florida, and so on. So you can mix and match all of these different clauses, all of these different options to do a lot of different things. And we'll be doing a lot of different things as we go through this whole class. This select can do a whole lot of stuff. Let's do another one. Let's hit the new button. Or where's the new button? There's the new button. Again, let's with the accounts payable database. Here's a list of all the invoices that we have. Which, is great, but let's say I want to know, well, what's the total? How much do we have in invoices? Yeah, I'm running my monthly report. I want to see how much there is. So let's add up all of the invoices. Here's another one of these built-in functions. It's called sum, which is that fancy mathematical term for adding things up. And I can see that total down here. If you notice the header up above, it's got the mathematical formula, so I can use this as keyword. I don't know, total, why not?
I got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, this is called an aggregate function, and that will come a little bit later on. That's the advanced lesson, but did want to show you that it's once you kind of learn the rules of this basic syntax here, and you can combine it in really powerful and interesting and great ways. It's one last one, limit. Sometimes you don't need all of the query results. And so limit, as its name suggests, limits the query results. So let me hit the new button here in my MySQL. Let's do yet another query. I want to see what are our biggest invoices. And if I want to see the biggest invoices first, is that an ascending sort or descending sort?
Descending?
Descending, is that a guess or is that with confidence?
Pretty sure.
All right, very good. Yeah, it's sometimes a little confusing. So you are in fact correct, Cooper, thank you. But you got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So do it one way, and if it doesn't come out the way you want, do it the other way. So descending gives us the biggest invoices first. And if I run this query, I can see 26,000 is the biggest, and then 23,000, 21,000, and they are descending. They're getting smaller. But this still gives me a list of all the invoices. It just keeps going and going and going. And so the final clause that is available to us is this limit. Limit 5. Give me only 5 records, only 5 query results. I don't want everything, just the top 5. So I run that again, and now I only get 5 results. All right. Let's just click through this PowerPoint a little bit more. because there's a couple of things I didn't show you that are in the book. And so, for example, there's this between with an and, so you can check a numeric range. There's a built-in function called concat, which is short for concatenate, which is this idea of joining character strings together. So in this example, we take the first name field of space and the last name field, concatenate, join those all together to make one single field that is the full name. Math, calculated field, parentheses. Okay. Format and dates, all right, so there's a round function. There's this date format where, you know, those wacky Europeans put the day first, then the month, but we wacky Americans do month, day, so you can control the appearance of those dates. Okay. And I did kind of mention, but did not show you, there are and or options in the where clause, just like in an if statement. You can have ands and ors. Also in an if statement, you can have nots, and we can have nots here in the where clause as well. I'm not going to do the in there. There is an option here called like that you can put in your query. So you don't have to do this. I'm going to show you though. So use AP. Come on. Like, and then we use the percent sign as a wildcard. Make that a little bigger. All right, so the percent sign is a wildcard, and then the X is a literal, and then the percent sign is another wildcard. This will give me a list of vendors that have a letter X in their name. Not terribly useful. And, oh, what? Okay, there it is. All right, Expedita, Tax Collector, Texaco, Executive, Executone. So wildcards or pattern matching to find text information. All right. Do go ahead and read that whole chapter. There's a lot of stuff. I think those are the highlights. Are there any questions on any of that? Or, I mean, I know it's a lot, and you know, we can follow up by email if you do have questions, but yeah.
I had a quick question. Pull it back up. For when you're bringing in, for like the homework, when we're bringing in the database,
Yes.
um,
I'm going to talk about the homework here right now. All right. Unless there's no further questions.
basically I wanted to know what we call it.
What you call it? What do you mean?
Just don't know how to bring it in correctly,
Bring what in? Stop using pronouns.
the data.
The data. Bring the data. All right. All right, so let's do that then. All right, so let's talk about the homework then. Yeah, it's a little big. There's a quiz on this chapter 3 that will be due by Sunday. Just like that's all I have to say about that. So chapter 3 assignment, there are 2 download files to work with here. One is called the worksheet, and then one is this IMDb Internet Movie Database script. And click on it. It opens in your web browser, at least mine does. I'm using Firefox, and I don't know, has anybody else tried clicking on it? Does it open in a separate file, or is it download, or?
Same for Chrome, just a web browser.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, so what James in the classroom was asking, all right, so it's here in my web browser, what I want to do with it. There's a couple of things. You can, let's go back to the eLearn page. Instead of clicking on it to open it in your web browser, if you right-click on it, and my screen sharing isn't showing it, but I have an option that says Save Link As, and I'm Firefox. Can someone verify what Chrome does?
Save like that.
Save Link As, and then it will go into your Downloads folder. And then from your download folder, you can open it in my SQL Workbench. You can open it in, open it there, file open, and go to your downloads folder, or copy it to wherever, wherever your files are that you work with. Maybe you have separate folders for each. This is just happening at the wrong time. Oh man, is there a power strip? Oh no, I'm just gonna have to wing it here. Oh man, it's just. Let's try this. All right, tripping hazard. All right, and then the other part then is this worksheet. Let me bring up my screen sharing. That looks like this. Well, hard to see on the screen sharing, but it's just a Microsoft Word document. And the way most of these homework assignments are set up is that there is a first column that has the tasks that you need to do. And then in the second column is where you put a screenshot to show me that you did it and that it works. Included in the file here is a screenshot already, and you can see these screenshots have these little yellow slashes through them, which is my high-tech anti-cheating mechanism, where unless you can precisely duplicate that little swooshy symbol, you have to come up with your own without the swooshy symbol on it. But it's like a check, a sample of what it should look like, just to kind of verify that, yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And if you want, as you're putting these in, you can select, I'm in protected mode, but anyway, you can delete the sample screenshot that's there, or you could paste yours above it and leave the sample down below. You might leave the sample with the yellow check just in case, you know, something goes wrong. You can go back to that original. The yellow check mark things only show the query results. Your screenshot needs to show the query itself. And so if I go to the very top of this document, can I make this bigger? Yeah. At the very top, it says example of what to turn in. And you may or may not be able to see, it says select movie title, content rating from my table, where blah, 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 blah. So the screenshot needs to include the query that you wrote, the SQL code that you wrote to get those results, in addition to the results themselves. All right, and then you'll save that as a Word document. You'll complete these different tasks, and that's what you will upload to that to the eLearn system when you're finished.